Native people, especially our women, are really are targeted. One, because the laws don't protect us, and two, it just seems like people don't care if we're missing or not. And I have a real fear of losing my family. I have sisters, aunts, cousins. I have my brothers up north. I have friends. I have a lot of people up there. And the thought of man camps and taking and hurting my family and my community is really scary and disturbing. And I think that needs to be brought out more when we're talking about these big, huge bills, how are they impacting the people nearby. We're going to talk about overall more than 595,000 American Indian and Alaska Native men have experienced violence in the past year. That's a huge amount of numbers. We're only like 1% of the population. And this is how many are being hurt. So, in response, in Michigan, Attorney General Dana Nessel, the 12 tribes of Michigan, and the Michigan State Police have worked together and established a tip line, in addition to other available resources. So, when we come up missing, our family can call somebody and they'll hopefully come and work and try to find us before we're killed. And this is not performative. I talked to Dana, AG Nessel, and she says this is real. And this is most likely, in my opinion, due to the fact of man camps coming to our state. Because how long is it going to take to build that monstrosity that's going to end up destroying our land and water? So here's another point that I thought would be important is that Lake Michigan has a sacred site. In 2020, during COVID, I was part of a team that discovered a 10,000-year-old sacred site at the bottom of Lake Michigan. That's the rocks on the bottom picture. They're in a big circle. They're huge. And we need to be able to have time to study this and learn our history from this wonderful sacred site and not have it destroyed by the drilling and boring and explosions that is going to be happening day and night. We really need to take the time. This is the top picture are friends of mine. When I called and asked, I couldn't even tell them what we were working on. It was that secretive because we just wanted to see line 5. And we ended up finding a sacred site. 10,000 years old. Tell me Creator wasn't looking out for us. And this will be impacted by the boring for that tunnel. There's no way it couldn't be. So the Washington Treaty of 1836, it reserves the Little Traverse Bay bands of Ladau Indians our right to hunt, fish, and gather within the ceded territories, which is where Line 5 runs through. And Line 5 is adjacent to our tribal trust lands, LTBB reservation boundaries. Any rupture or break would be detrimental to the water and ecosystems that supports the plants and animals that the tribal citizens rely on. In case it will impact our treaty rights. We have the right to hunt, fish, and gather. This way we can teach our children and our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren and have these traditions carry on as part of our culture, as part of our history to be able to hunt and fish and gather. I remember going out with my grandma doing berrying in the summertime. I remember going fishing with my uncles. They take me out in different spots and taught me how to. I can't tell the spots, but they did. They took me out there. That was how I learned. That's how I learned how important this is, was from my family teaching me. And if that's gone, we can't teach our children. And this fish is important to us. We're we're the woodland tribes. So we have to protect the forest, the lakes, the rivers, the streams. We have to. And well, let's see the next one. So Native Citizenship Act is under attack. I don't know if you guys have been reading the papers, but right now it's stayed temporarily. They got what was it, 214 weeks left to try to erode this. And this is what's under attack, tribal nations. We were the last group of people to gain citizenship in the United States on our own lands. Everybody else who came here got it before us. You have to ask yourself why. So those treaty rights, those land rights, because of those, we are the frontline warriors because we have stopped, installed a lot of digging, a lot of pipelines. We have been frontline warriors in these fights. And that needs to be remembered. And we need help. We can't just leave it to the Indians. We're 1% of the population. We need help. But we also need to be native citizens. Because you have to wonder, why are they after this other than the land rights and the treaty rights? What are they trying to do? And who's going to do the boring? Who's going to dig? Well, we all know that there is now an executive order about the energy emergency that's going on, and they're pushing on like through all these pipeline permitting. Why? Did you ask why? Well, I researched and found out that Elon Musk has a pipeline company, the Boring Company.com. Seriously. And they dig up and build utility tunnels. Is that why all of a sudden this has come up to the top of the list and people want this and now it's even harder or easier to get the permits and they're going through without making any sense or following any of the rules or regulations and policies and procedures while they're being top line? Because who stands to gain? It's not Michigan. So we've always been told that it's either this or it's that. We have to have a tunnel or we have to have the pipeline. We have to have it. And the pipeline is dangerous because it's 73 years old. So we're going to put this tunnel in instead. No, we don't have an either or. That is simply not our case. Michigan does not benefit from this pipeline. We've been already know that we're using like 5% and that's it. It goes down to Detroit for the marathon, and then it goes to Sarnia, and they export it to China. And I heard to make plastic. I still bet money on it that those empty Walmart big freighters that leave here empty, coming back with Enbridge product on there, those little gadgets and doomer flunkers. So we don't benefit from this. Who benefits? Canada and Enbridge benefit. So why are we taking these risks? Why? If nothing else, the Kalamazoo oil spill has taught us how an oil spill in the Great Lakes will work or not work. If you still can't go to Kalamazoo and walk around and do anything nearby. There's still oil there. How many years later? What is it, like close to 20 now? Or 10, sometimes. It's a long, yeah, I think it's closer to 10. I misspoke there. But we all know that did not benefit Michigan. Enbridge got a slap on the wrist and they went ahead and put their fences up and kicked us all away from trying to help and contain the spill as they kept pumping it out for 17 hours. So the solution to this is enforce the shutdown of Line 5 that Governor Whitmer already has in place, remove any and all permits for the farce of a tunnel. This will be a stranded asset. And again, will not benefit Michigan. We'll be stuck holding a $1 billion bag of crap that we didn't need, want, and it's going to hurt our water. Now, labor has been wanting this. I've said labor is desperately needed for this job. Who else can we trust but to take apart that tunnel or that pipeline, Line 5 pipeline? Who will take that out of there safely but our own labor unions? And I think that's how this should work out. I think that we need to work on our next plan of action, keep an eye out, because this isn't finished. I'm hoping that we will take this all the way to the Supreme Court because this is not good for Michigan. You've already heard from our last speaker how disgustingly this put together this will be and our impacts. And now you know how it's going to impact us, the indigenous people and our lands and the animals who don't have a choice. You think they want to swim around in methane with all of that back drilling being put into their water? No, they don't. They just want to live. So if anybody has questions,
Thanks so much, Andrea. I think if folks want to throw questions in the chat, we'll see if we might just have a little bit of time after this. Incredibly sobering. I'm so glad you came to make the voice of the lake and Tree Nation and Bird Nation and those perspectives from the indigenous communities that absolutely have not had a voice in any of this. And as Enbridge likes to say, wow, treaties were signed and that means forever, right? And it's just really an insult to the idea that indigenous communities have given those rights away and would never have any opportunity to speak up for themselves again. And we're glad to be able to speak on that behalf in some limited capacity. Well, we do have just a few actions that we can share with everyone tonight. Our speakers, I think, have made it really clear that Enbridge's plan to build this new oil tunnel pipeline across the Straits of Mackinac is going to put the Great Lakes at tremendous risk. Not just the environmental and cultural disaster. I see folks talking about, we didn't even cover the economic risks today. Andrew got a little bit into that and the what Michigan taxpayers will really be on the hook for. So all of these risks and our role in MICAN, again, continue to amplify the climate impacts, going to cause enormous greenhouse gas pollution at a time, and this project is contrary to Michigan's own environmental values and legal protections. We passed the 2023 Clean Energy and Jobs Act with a goal of 100% clean energy by 2040. And if we want a shot at achieving that goal at all, we simply cannot invest in any new fossil fuel infrastructure. The tunnel, again, is one of the most unfortunate examples of a false solution. It harms communities, exacerbates the climate crisis, all while undermining Michigan's clean energy goals. With this new administration in DC prioritizing big oil, Michigan faces renewed challenges in 2025 to protect the natural resource. And we are asking for our policymakers and decision makers here and the agencies to stand up. There are still a few chances left. As I started and opened at the top of the hour here, unfortunately, I learned just before starting this event that our appeal challenging the Michigan Public Service Commission's disastrous decision to exclude the very arguments that you heard today about the risk and the need for Line 5 at all, much less the economic and other pieces, that those are not going to be remanded to the agency. As Andrea said, they're part of that appeal as well. I'm not sure what the next steps are, whether we will appeal to the Supreme Court, but I would still ask you to sign on to support our appeal because we've had over 1,000 folks sign this and over 40 organizations. And we will be taking this to those decision makers to continue to showcase the broad public support for moving away from fossil fuels and not building this tunnel and shutting down the dual pipelines as they are. So please take that action. I think Amanda is helping me out and throwing some links in the chat there for me as I keep going here. The second action that you can take, and I saw a question in the chat about this. Well, what is Eagle? Why isn't Eagle doing what it should be doing? Well, let's make them do what they need to do as well. There's a clean water permit that is up from Eagle. It was already approved once. There's some questions around whether this is a renewal, whether this is reauthorization, but there's another opportunity here to advocate to our friends at Eagle to make sure that they deny the water permit. And I think Amanda will put that link in the chat. That's sponsored by our friends, and we're part of the steering committee at Oil and Water Don't Mix. An opportunity here to make our voices heard and let decision makers again know that we do not want this thing. We do not need this thing, and it is only going to exacerbate our risks and our crises. The last action that I have for you, again, this is also new news. As of this week, advocates learned that the Line 5 tunnel project is on a list of projects that is requesting the Army Corps of Engineers to expedite or fast track that approval and not do the full environmental review that is necessary and that the Army Corps of Engineers has already started and is already trying to proceed with. Again, all the risks that you heard about tonight are the exact things that we think should be fully considered. And it is unfathomable to us that when those risks are truly considered, that these projects would go forward. Right now, we think that this Army Corps decision will be made like tomorrow, folks. So please get on there. If you are listening to this right now, please get on there and take this action to tell the Army Corps of Engineers to not expedite this project. We have to at least explore these risks and let citizens' voices be heard. I want to thank everybody for really being a part of tonight. And even though we started with some devastating news and this fight again continues, I really do think that the more of us know about these risks and are able to share them as advocates to decision makers and in our communities, that we now hold this information. If nobody else is going to listen to it, we have to continue to make sure that it is out there. And I appreciate you being part of this event. If you're not already part of MyCam, please join us. We do have just a couple minutes if there are any other maybe big questions in there that we could try to take on. I'll stop sharing for just a second as we close things out. Anything in there that we can answer right now? And thanks to Ashley rising up some of the economic impacts. Again, we could do a whole other webinar just on the economic impacts, and we'll share out a great event by Groundwork last spring on tunnel vision that included some of those pieces as well. Anything we can answer?
We had a couple questions in the chat, but I'm not sure that they'll be easy for anybody to answer. So let me see. I marked down the time. So the first one was by Rick asked if we thought, and I don't know exactly who he was asking, maybe Brian, do you think the whole tunnel proposal is just a stalling tactic to allow them to keep pumping oil while the tunnel is being built and maybe never even finishing the tunnel? And I'm not sure anybody has a direct answer to that question.
Well, this is Brian. I've heard that, and it certainly appears to be that way. Enbridge is continuing to make money from pushing the oil and gas through the pipeline. They are making an attempt to do the right thing with respect to doing some studies and having engineers and whatnot involved. But I don't know what their motives are. All I can tell you is based on what they've found to date, they haven't addressed all the concerns that were raised, and they seem to be just going through the motions. So it's hard to determine if they're serious. I'm not sure, again, but I can tell you that they haven't done enough and they haven't done the right things. And that's what concerns me. So I'm taking it seriously that they're going to pursue this and intend to do it. And that's why I'm concerned, because everything that I'm seeing shows me that they either don't understand the risks or they are ignoring them or just ignorant to them. So it's worrisome to me.
Yeah.
Can I answer too?
Sure.
I believe that this is a real threat to Michigan and that this needs to be taken as such. They have said that they want to build this. They're going through. They keep funding the court cases. They keep funding everything to get it, right? And now we're on an emergency or energy emergency EO list. I don't think that we can take this anything but to the highest level of being that it's going to happen if we don't stop it. If we don't keep fighting, if we don't keep writing and calling everybody that we can, this will be our future.
Couldn't have picked better closing words myself. I see the questions in there. The Michigan Court of Appeals issued what's called a per curiam opinion, which usually is then just an order that says we decline to remand and do this. But they also decided to write 30 pages about it. And I think the legal review, since that just happened today, I think that we really need to take a little time and read through all of that, and we'll be making a decision whether we go to the Michigan Supreme Court with that or not. And I have to say, I am really buoyed by your comments in the chat and the urgency that you all feel and the continued united front to fight, to fight and fight back. And what that might look like direct action this year. It might look like more protests. It might look a little different, folks. We are in, as you all know, really uncharted waters here as we move forward and try to continue to stop this disastrous spill and effects on Michigan. I appreciate everyone coming out tonight. I know it's been a little sobering, and we will be in touch with the next steps that each of you can take in our communities and continue to connect and support all of you in, frankly, the fight of our lives. I hope to connect with all of you soon and have the best evening you possibly can.